Thanks for joining for another session of Tabnine Office Hours. My name is Chris Good. It's just going to be me here solo this week. So if you've been tuning in or have tuned in previously, usually have another face with me. That's Amaya, but he's not going to be able to join us today. So unfortunately, you're just stuck with me. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And bear with me, I'm a one-man show today, so a little patience while we might be moving a little bit slower than normal. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're all here today, and we know that AI is here as well. And Gartner is looking at forecasting, is forecasting that adoption is going to rise even more rapidly this year. So they're saying by 2028, 78% of enterprise software engineers will use AI code assistants. And that number is up from less than 10% in early 2023. And that's not really surprising, right? Because AI is fundamentally changing software development. And the productivity gains for using AI code assistants from engineering teams have been incredible. And that's regardless of what tool you're using. Whether it's AI code assistant or an LLM, these solutions have real value and are helping engineering teams deliver faster. And specifically at Tab9, the increase we've seen our customers come to expect ranges from 30 to 50% increase in productivity gains across the full set of tasks that constitute the SDLC. And also, let me just add here, this session is interactive. So if there's questions or comments or things that you want to see, I will do my best to answer those. And then when it comes to the demo, we can even tackle specific pieces that you guys want to see or specific examples. So again, ask questions, engage, and I'll do my best to answer them. So let's continue to move forward here. So, oops, let me see something here. All right. So where we have been and where are we going from here? All the AI capabilities, or all AI capabilities for fact, or rather, are rapidly evolving, and Tab9 is continually at the forefront of this emerging space. So starting all the way back in 2018, we actually are the entire inventor and creator of this category. That's when we first released our first ever AI-based code completion model for Java IDE. And we were also called Codota back in that time. So from there in 2019, LLMs emerged for the first time. And of course, we're all probably not really aware of them yet because no one really paid attention to LLMs until ChatGPT, or ChatGPT as I call it, exploded in popularity in the late 2022 or 2021. But with the emergence of LLM tech, we started to expand our code completions model to cover more languages across all major IDEs. And then the code completions got even better. And in 2022, we got full function, full line, snippet, and block code completions. And in 23, we launched our AI chat agent that let you use natural language to do code generation through chat. And in 24, we launched our first iteration of our context engine, developing local IDE context and global context. And 24 also saw us launch human-in-the-loop AI agents for every step of the SDLC. Now, this is what we've already built, and we've built a full set of AI agents for every step of the SDLC. And these agents help you accelerate and simplify the entire software development process. And they can help you plan, create, document, test, fix, and maintain code. And today you can use all of these agents directly in your IDE, like an AI pair programmer assisting you with each one of these steps. And we'll show you demos of all of these agents in action later today. But where are we going as an industry here, right? Well, AI-enabled software development is going to be able to autonomously execute more and more tasks over time, unlocking more and more value for your business, theoretically. And Tab9 is really your perfect pair partner along that journey. and you may have seen a video interview of Mark Zuckerberg on the Joe Rogan podcast, and whether you love Joe Rogan or hate him, but Zuck said that the AI engineer is already here in 25. Now, I don't necessarily believe that's true for the enterprise, and we don't believe that's true for the enterprise. And literally any enterprise engineering leader that we've spoken to also doesn't believe that's true for the enterprise. So not entirely sure I agree with what Zuck is talking about there, but where we do agree with them is that the technology has the potential and it will continue to improve and evolve. And it will eventually deliver some form of what many of us in our industry are calling an AI engineer, and what you imagine is one. But this isn't happening tomorrow, and it's not happening this year. And forecasts on when it happened range from as near as 5 years away to multiple decades. So the truth is, if anyone's actually telling you they can accurately predict when something like a fully autonomous AI engineer will emerge, that's a statement that you should take with a grain of salt. So we've grounded ourselves by looking at what's actually happened. So let's take a look at actually where we are actually and where we are today, and is transitioning from AI coding assistants to semi-autonomous human-in-the-loop AI agents for specific tasks and capabilities in the SDLC for mature enterprise engineering teams. So now, before we even get to a true agentic AI for software development that mature enterprise engineering teams actually can trust and use, there's some things that need to happen, right? Agentic AI needs to use deep organizational insights. And the reason for that is an analysis by a number of independent researchers. Get Clear is a great example of a study that came out. But in an analysis by these independent researchers, it was observed that in some cases in teams, as the adoption of AI-generated code rose, so did the number of rejected pull requests, right? And in some cases, that meant that there was a massive amount of rejection at code review. But why would that be the case? AI clearly knows how to code, and it knows the programming languages. The answer really lies within your organization itself, right? So if I ask the 20 some people here in the room right now the right answer to a specific engineering assignment, it's likely that you'll give me 20 something different answers. Now the problem is that they're actually all correct, but the one that matches your expectations, guidelines, standards, however, is the only one that's going to make it past the pull request and code review. Now, working with an LLM is like hiring a software engineer off the street. They know the O'Reilly textbook answer to every single coding problem, but they don't know how your organization does things. So at best, they may propose to write a new function or an existing function that already exists, increasing tech debt. And at worst, they could propose changes that break your corporate policies and adversely affect your entire application. So when you combine the inherent knowledge and capabilities within an LLM with the right understanding of your team, you fix this problem. And that's really about layering on the right levels of context, which we're going to show you here later. So to get from an AI chat assistant, an AI code assistant, to an autonomous AI engineer, and along the way, agentic AI that you can trust, there's two real things that we need to deliver on as an industry. And the first is agentic AI for the enterprise needs a comprehensive understanding of company knowledge and standards. And the second is that engineers need to have absolute control on a task level basis, or a task level over the AI scope, behaviors, and decision as it works. And so it's a hell of a time to be an engineer. And it's exciting and thrilling even, right? But it's also really, really challenging for engineering teams, specifically in the enterprise and highly regulated and privacy conscious industries, because many of you have a mandate to adopt AI to increase efficiency, but you also have to adhere to your internal policies. And frankly, AI solution providers keep claiming they all do the same thing, but the proof is in the pudding, as you'll find here with Tab9. When you actually do a trial or a POV with us, you'll see that we're likely one of the few that actually tell you what the capabilities really are and can actually deliver on them. But I digress. So what I'd like to offer you with is some perspective as you undertake this journey evaluating AI and deploying AI agents at your enterprise. We're really going to be your partner along the way. So bear with me just a little bit longer, and we are going to get to that demo. It's coming here, but we just have some slides to work through first. So we all know what the issue is right now with LLMs and generic AI code assistants and generic AI, agentic AI software development, right? And the real issue is that they lack context. They give you generic answers, they generate more code and more tech debt, and using any of them today requires you to trade off between privacy and protection and performance. And we don't believe that you need to make that decision here at Tab9. With Tab9, we eliminate the need to trade off between privacy, performance, and protection. With Tab9, you can get it all, right? And the way we deliver on that is using powerful LLMs, layering on our context engine for personalization, and combining that with AI agents that are fully in the human in the loop, giving you complete control over all of their behavior, actions, and keeping your engineers in the pilot seat. Because these aren't co-pilots, they're your agents, right? So what we have here, let me show you this. This is a enterprise AI performance curve. So, excuse me here, I'm parched. I've been talking a lot and I'm gonna keep talking a lot. So think of this about this line here as increased performance for your AI. And as you get to the pinnacle of performance, which is achieved by model fine tuning of small language models, and I just important note here, you ideally want to fine tune small language models because you want control and you want clarity of the model's performance. And also a small language model is easier to control and fine tune, but we'll get into that later. Now, as the specificity of the AI output increases and you need highly, highly fine tuned control over its behavior, what happens is the amount of proprietary IP and sensitive information that the AI needs to ingest through its context engine, that increases, right? So starting all the way at the bottom here, you've got your IDE retrieval augmented generation, RAG, right? Which is our first level of context awareness, local IDE context, excuse me, that looks at about 15 different data points. And from there, you have non-code retrieval augmented generation, RAG, right? And that's looking at things like Jira issues and Confluence integration. And Confluence is coming soon, but Jira is already out. And from there, then we have source code RAG, right? And that's where you can connect AI to your source code management systems. Tab9 supports Bitbucket, GitLab, GitHub, any Git-based repo, and any flavor of the three providers I've just mentioned. And then you can also connect an unlimited amount of source code management systems to your repositories and repositories to Tab9, right? There's no limits there. And finally, at the pinnacle here, this is what the chart calls code, standards, and security RAG. But what it really is constraints, it's guidelines, it's rules for the AI to follow. Now, given that mature enterprise engineering teams need highly specific AI performance and they need to give it access to highly confidential information, what you see happening here is that the performance needs to increases from the AI, your privacy increases as well. So what Tab9 really gives you is customized AI software development platform that's fully configurable, right? You can use any LLM you like, any set of LLMs you like. And that includes third-party providers, ones that you've deployed on-prem in your own infrastructure, or perhaps LLMs that you're developing and fine-tuning yourself. We can plug those in and support all of them and enhance them with our agentic AI and our personalization through our context engine. And then we also offer a small language model for fine tuning of our Tabnine Universal Code Completions model. And this is a fantastic approach for things like semiconductor manufacturing, where you have engineering teams writing code in System Verilog and VHDL. It's a fantastic approach for aerospace, where you have, in defense, where you have folks writing in things like COBOL and other low-level machine languages. And it's also great for governments as well, which are all use cases that we're currently deployed and in use by thousands of engineers. But what we can do for you is give you a small language model that's fine-tuned based on your code, and that gives you an excellent code completion for the most secure and precise engineering teams in your organization. Now, you may not need all of your engineers to be deployed on-prem or air-gapped, and that's where the flexibility really becomes important, because you can also deploy Tabnine VPC at the same company. And for the teams where security of your code is even less important, you can deploy Tabnine via SaaS. But we'll show you later that even if you do deploy it in SaaS, it's fully private and your data is fully protected here. Now, I do see a couple comments. Let me see what we have here. Really look forward to the support of Xcode and Tabnine. We will keep you posted on that, Holger. Same, yeah, we are all excited. And then does Tab9 support MCP, Model Context Protocol? Let me get back to you on that. Trifon, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but let me take a pending and I can find that answer out for you. Okay, so let's keep. So let's keep moving on here. And I will answer all of these questions. Just got to keep flowing because we've got a lot to talk about today. So let's talk about addressing the barriers to AI adoption, right? And the first one is protecting your organization from the risk of copyright infringement. So now, historically, IP liability present in LM training data has been akin to Schrodinger's cat, right? It both is and isn't alive, right? In that sense, the IP liability both is and isn't present. And in organizations using AI, haven't been able to look inside the box, right? But whether you want to or not, it's time to look inside. And we did. And the cat is mostly free of IP liabilities. So this is an important thing to note and share with your legal teams, because nearly 90% of survey respondents to the 2025 RBC CIO survey reported that they're adopting AI into their processes by the end of 2025. And their biggest concern for nearly 38% of the respondents was copyright infringement. So we want to share our expertise with you in this area, right? We've worked with a lot of organizations that share this concern, and we've helped a lot of engineering teams navigate highly restrictive AI policies. And we can even provide teams that have legal policies banning the use of LLMs outright with a compliant pathway to adoption. But here's the important figure for you to ground yourself on. In the study by Carnegie Mellon from last year, they looked at the most popular LLM models, studied their frequency of code generation, frequency of their generation of code snippets that had a strikingly similar score on a benchmark they created called a LICO eval to license protected code. And what they found was the frequency of that was occurring between, or they found that the frequency of that code being generated was between 0.88 to 2.01%. So what this data can tell you is that if you're using a third-party model from a reputable provider, the risk of IP liability is actually quite low. However, you don't need to just rely and bet the farm on that, because Tabnine offers the most comprehensive approach to copyright and IP compliance in this category. So let's talk about how we do that. And we do that in 3 ways, right? The first is provenance and attribution, which is what this GIF is supposed to be showing, but doesn't look like it's actually working right now in the slide deck, which is okay. It's a capability in tab 9 where we check AI generated code from any LLM that you're using against publicly visible code, and we match and in the sorry, we where we check AI generated code from any LLM you're using against publicly visible code and flag matches and reference the source and license for that code, right? So that makes it really easy to decide if the code meets your specific needs. And what's coming really soon here is you're going to be able to take that decision out of the hands of the individual developer and set that through the admin console as organizational governance for your AI policies, right? So you'll be able to determine the license types that you find compliant and the ones that you don't, and suppress the ones that you don't from ever entering your code through AI. Now, if that's not good enough for you, we also offer a completely IP-safe LLM for our most sensitive customers, and that's called Tabnine Protected. And Tabnine Protected is purpose-built for software development, of course, but what's the most important thing is that it's trained exclusively on permissively licensed code. And this means or meets the requirements of teams with the highest standards of IP compliance, which is really, really common in some software companies in sensitive industries. And then what's also unique about Tabnine Protected is that we're the only LLM provider in the market that exposes the full set of underlying training data. And you can access that through the Tab9 Trust Center, and we're happy to share that with you and for you to review that. Now, of course, capping it all off, we offer contractual protection through indemnification and to our enterprise customers. So there's really no need to worry at all. And now the second thing you need to do is personalize the output of AI generation to fit your organization's context. Now, here, and this is really critical, right? Because it can because generic systems can generate code, or can generic systems generate code for enterprise grade challenges. And this study from George Mason University took a look at just that, right? And what they found is that generic AI code assistants, such as Copilot or Codium, really struggled with these hard challenges. So they found usability issues in aligning with CodePilot's real-world tasks. They noted inefficiencies with it in complex environments like the ones that you run into and operate in an everyday. And specifically, Codium struggled with significantly hard problems across all categories, with an overall success rate of 13% for hard problems. So here is how we solve this for you today. And this is our advanced context engine. Now, I know this is a architecture slide. So not all of these capabilities are out yet, but today, but this is what we have on our roadmap. And we've already built, and what we've already built for you today is that you can use this tab 9 and all of the major IDEs. We have generation agents for every step of the SDLC. We've released code validations for code review that check for security. And of course, we have provenance and attribution for compliance. And our code review agent also checks for performance, architecture, maintainability, correctness, and I think a few others. And then, of course, we've got our bug fixing agent as well. So this also lets you combine Tab 9's enterprise context engine with proprietary and customized models that we've developed for you, or ones that you develop yourself, as well as third-party models as you like. And we have a growing list of integrations for context with other model providers and other parts of the enterprise at each tech stack. And of course, on a pull request side of the house, we currently integrate with GitHub PRs and additional PRs coming soon. But naturally, you can connect Tab 9 to any source code management system. So let's just take a little pause here before I share more about this context engine, or our context engine. Let me ground you on how LLMs really work. Oh, let me see here. We have one question that just came in. Can I plug in my agent into Tab9, like a custom built GPT in Tab9? Not necessarily sure about agents, but if it's like a SLM that you've created, right? Like a version of Chat GPT that's specific to you. Yes, on Tab9 Enterprise self-hosted customers, you can integrate new, which we'll talk about here shortly, any LLM of your choice. We are now providing the freedom and flexibility for Tab9 Enterprise self-hosted users to be able to integrate any LLM, SLM, open source, third-party model that they would like into Tab9. And we'll talk about that more here shortly. But great question. So let's just talk about how LLMs work. Because I can't talk to you live on air right now, you'll have to forgive me if this is stuff that you folks already know. But the modern day LLMs are transformer-based models, right? So they reason about sequences. And really what they know is the relationship that exists between entities within that sequence. And that enables them to predict what comes next in that sequence. So here you have a silly, simple, but fun example of how neural networks arrive at an output. Humpty Dumpty sat on a what? Okay, Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. It's a 98% probability. So coding assistants that use LLMs, that have been trained on huge corpuses of open source software, and we're talking about billions and billions of repos here, comprising of hundreds and hundreds of different languages. And in a lot of cases, code assistants can solve problems thoroughly or purely through the data set on which the LLM has been trained on. And you'll find that common when you're going from 0 to 1, starting from scratch. But that's not usually the case for enterprise engineering teams. You're more like going from 101 to 102, right? So, whoops. Let's talk about personalizing Tab9, right? What is retrieval augmented generation, and why do we use retrieval augmented generation? Well, RAG basically gives you the output and the intended effect of fine-tuning without having to perform fine-tuning. And it solves the criticisms of LLMs, even fine-tuned LLMs, when it comes to coding and the output of these LLMs produces is out of date, right? And this is how it sort of works with the stick figure diagram. But when you make a query into Tab9, like this guy here is asking, how do I build a REST client to call the Acme services layer? Now, instead of that going straight to the LLM and spitting out a generic response, what happens first is that query gets sent to our retrieval system. And it goes into the ranked documents that we've created through indexing. And then that query is written and enhanced prior to being sent back to the LLM before generating a response. Now, there's two ways that we do retrieval augmented generation here. There's semantic memory, right? And semantic memory basically uses a semantic understanding of the code base to retrieve semantically relevant entities into the inference context. And this is language specific. So we use language servers here to analyze the project and then to create an in-memory representation of that semantic information. And the second way we do that is with vector memory. So in this case, we create documents that are retrieved from code sources and non-code sources. Text is then chunked into model digestible pieces. And then we create numerical embeddings for each chunk and load those into the vector store. And then that vector space is uploaded periodically to reflect those changes in your code. Now, if you were to try to do this through fine-tuning, you would have to run your fine-tuning process on an hourly or by the minute basis, which if you've ever tried to fine-tune a model before, you know that is actually impossible to do it that quickly. And what this lets you do is expose best practices and make code discoverable and encourage code reuse, as well as the output of the LLM so that it fits your organizational context. Now, here's an example of exactly how that occurs, right? So you're using a question or a prompt in the IDE plugin, standalone questions hitting similarity and semantic search. Then it's going over to the vector DB. It's getting our retrieval documents and pushing all of that information that's contextually enhanced into the LLMs, and boom, you've got a relevant code suggestion. Now, this is so starting from, I guess, our first level of context awareness, local code awareness. This is all the data points that we look at. And there's about 15 of them. So we have current file, open files, current selection, imported libraries, compiler syntax errors, terminal, other project files, project metadata, Git history, conversation history, connected repositories, and other sources of information. And this is basically how we increase the quality of AI code recommendations through personalization, right? So through 4 levels of context: local context, connection to your code and knowledge bases, coaching based on your standards, and then the customization of the underlying models as we need. And here's a quick look, sort of a deeper dive into personalization, right? This is our local context. And our code-based context, which is giving you AI tailored to you and your team without sacrificing privacy. And the bullets are specifically on this slide are specifically relevant to teams using Tabnine via our SaaS deployment. Naturally, if you're using VPC or on-prem or air-gap deployments, it's fully self-contained. So let's talk. Whoops. Okay, excuse me. I might have jumped ahead a slide here. All right. Okay, so now when we get into customization, or geez, let me see here. We are all over the place. Coaching. All right, this is where we left off. All right, thanks for bearing with me here. So coaching. You can get explicit guidance to control how Tabnine behaves, right? And that operates in the pull request as well as the IDE. So Tabnine generates code that complies with all of your organization's standards, guidelines, and rules. And Tabnine enables customers to codify their institutional knowledge, for example, accepted standards for software development, unique best practices, corporate policies, into rules that can be applied in code review and at the pull request, or even in the IDE. And as you provide these parameters you like to see your code comply with, you can do this via plain language, so no complex setup required, and Tabnine can convert these rules into a comprehensive set of a rule set. And Tabnine then checks the code in the PR and your IDE against the set of rules, flags deviations, and offers guidance and suggested edits to fix these issues. And yes, just to answer this question, Daniel or Danielle, you do not have to manually paste the console output into Tabnine. Correct. So Tabnine, then checks your code in the PR and IDE against your set of rules, flags deviations, and offers guidance, suggested edits to fix those issues. And what this is doing is enabling you to generate code that is of higher quality, more secure, and follows your best practices. Now, the last piece here is, of course, fine-tuning the models for ultimate personalization. So let's talk about coaching and why that's important, right? Because any AI code assistant, even a generic one, can, or any LLM can generate code, but only Tabnine can validate that code, right? So, and that's important, right? Because code generated by generic assistants is questionable in its security. And so this study here looked at GitHub projects and Copilot generated code. It also examined uh, ChatGPT and Codium and found that on average, 30% of code snippets being generated by these tools have security weaknesses. And the security weaknesses were diverse, right? They related to 43 different CWEs, and 8 of the CWEs were found to belong to the currently recognized 2023 top 25 CWE list. So that is a problem, right? Because you can't scale code generation if you're scaling security weaknesses, technical errors, and bugs, right? So this is how we solve for that, right? Again, this looks like my GIFs are not working, but we're going to show all of this. So keep bearing with me here. It's all going to come in the demo. We solve for that by using the Tabnine code review agent. And what you can do with the code review agent is you can codify your institutional knowledge. For example, like I said, your accepted standards for software development architecture, best practices, maintainability rules, security rules, so on and so forth. And you can then create policies and guardrails that guide the performance and output of generative AI. And there's 2 ways we train this. There's a simple way, which is inputting your rules via natural language into the admin UI. And then for the rule set, and then there's the way that we can help you develop it as well, which is that we point Tabnine to your existing pull requests and extract the most common occurrences of rules that need to be implemented and generate a rule set for you. You can also actually point Tabnine at a golden repo that you tell us about, and that contains your organization's best code and best practices that are already being followed, and we can extract rules and rule sets from there. But once you've done that, you've got a code review agent that's completely customized and fine-tuned to you. And it checks and reads your code in the pull request directly. And it's also shifting into the IDE over time. So Tabnine will just generate code that matches your standards from the get-go, even prior to the pull request. Now, you also need to think about future-proofing your AI software development platform. And we give you complete control over your AI infrastructure to do that. And this is really important, right? Because many of our customers are developing their own LLMs. And we've seen with the rise of Llama, Qwen, DeepSeek, the LLM's arms race is far from over, and you are going to want flexibility. So with Tabnine, you get that. You have complete model flexibility, and you choose the best fit for you. And of course, with our SaaS offering, we offer a ton of different models that you can use, and we're up to date, and we're always adding more models. But if you're deploying via VPC, you can connect into your private endpoints for those models as well. For example, you can do Cloud Sonic through AWS Bedrock. And then, of course, if you're deployed on-prem and you've got your own models in your own infrastructure, you can connect those to Tabnine as well. And like I said earlier, we've announced now native support for Llama 3.370B and Qwen 2.532B within our enterprise self-hosted offering, as well as now introducing this groundbreaking capability that enables you to integrate any LLM of your choice in self-hosted environments, right? Whether you need to deploy highly optimized open source models, leverage models that you fine-tuned internally, or integrate specialized third-party models, Tabnine now allows your organization to seamlessly incorporate those models into our AI software development platform. And this expanded support gives enterprise teams what we think here is unprecedented flexibility to select the optimal models for their specific development needs. And the key, while maintaining complete control over deployment architecture, data sovereignty, and security protocols. That's huge. So, and all of that together lets you create a fully self-contained AI system. And what you're going to get then is total privacy, right? Flexibility and control is in play here. You can deploy however you like, and of course, you can deploy Tabnine via SaaS. You can deploy it via as VPC. You can deploy as on-premise, and you can also deploy Tabnine fully air-gapped. And what's super duper cool about Tabnine is within your single company, you can have multiple deployment types of Tabnine. So that really gives you total control over your data privacy and performance. Okay, so why Tab9, right? You now have a good understanding of what's happening in the category. The way Tab9's capabilities are putting you in the best position possible to leverage these innovations for today and for years to come. So let's cap this all together. Tab9's delivering an AI software development platform that's tailored to you. And when I say tailored to you, I mean tailored to the specific needs of highly mature enterprise engineering teams. And you've seen how it's personalized. You've seen how we keep your data private. You've seen how we protect you from all these drawbacks and limitations. But it's not just us tooting our own horn, right? We've been recognized by leading analyst firms. Most recently, Gartner recognized us that our critical capabilities report for AI code assistance. And in looking at all of the 12 major providers in the space, we ranked first for 3 use cases, and we ranked a very, very, very close second for the other 2 of the 5 use cases. And we're also top ranked by Everest Group as well as OMDIA. So let's get into the juicy part. Let's talk about the demo and everything that we can do with Tab9. So bear with me here. Let me get this pulled up and sent over. Alrighty. Okay, let's see here. Perfect. Perfect, perfect. Whoops, gotta do one thing here. Perfect. All right. Now we have our board up and running. Let's go. So let's go over the UI that folks are going to be interacting with, the Tab9 UI, and each of the agents that you're going to find along the way. Now, I do apologize. I do not have the StreamYard comment section up here, so I will go back here shortly. I'll take intermittent breaks throughout the demo, and I will answer questions and see what's going on in the chat. But feel free to pop as many of them in there as you would like, and I will do my best to answer them. So here we're in VS Code. Now, it is worth mentioning that we support the entire JetBrains family, Visual Studio, VS Code, Eclipse, NeoVim as well. Now, I have my chat on the left-hand side. You can also drag it and drop it, but when you install Tab9, you're going to see the logo here on the left-hand side of your IDE. And when you click it, it's going to open up the Tab9 AI chat. Now, there's a lot going on here, so we're going to start at the bottom. So first and foremost, you're going to see an area to use everyday conversational language, right? Natural language prompts and queries. You can also, new to Tab9, control your scope, right? So you can fine tune at a personal developer level your RAG, right? Current file, local ID, workspace, remote code base repositories, and specific repositories that I have linked within my environment. Below that, or next to that, you're going to see the ability for @mentions, right? So you can mention specific methods, classes, files, your quick commands. So if you've been a Tab9 user before, you would notice that there used to be agents here. We've moved those agents within the dropdown. So these explain code, generate tests for code, document code, fix code, and code explore. as well as all of my other fun custom commands, which we'll get into later on in this demo. To the right of that, you're going to find the ability to add image as context, so image prompts, which we'll talk about here shortly, as well as our Jira integration agent. That's where you'll find access to that. At the top of this, you're going to see our switchable models dropdown. So these are all the models I currently have set provision to myself in this instance, but this is controlled by your administrator, right? So as individual developer, you'll be able to see and choose which ones that you want to use for the specific task at hand. Personally, for me, I'm a Claude fanboy. I think it's great, so I'm going to stick with that today. To the next to the switchable models, you're going to see our test agent. And that's represented by this beaker here. And this is where you can generate comprehensive test plans for your code. To the right of that, you're going to find your settings icon, which there is so much cool stuff happening in here, which we'll talk about. But response length, defining custom behaviors, creating custom commands and sharing them as well, and then being able to turn on or off chat inline completions. I like them on, so we're going to keep them there. As well as you can then access your history as well from here. So moving into the IDE or into the file itself, let's talk about the different ways you'll interact with Tabnine within your code. So we'll go to the generator.java file. So first is code completions, right? As you're typing, Tabnine is going to recognize your intent and generate code suggestions. Now, not to be confused with the dropdown here, but what's in gray is Tabnine suggestions, right? So it's automatically going to recognize your intent. So if you're writing a test, it's going to autocomplete tests. If you're writing documentation, comments, code, so on and so forth, it will recognize your intent and generate relevant auto suggestions. Now, the next piece you're going to see here is at the top of each block of code, you're going to find our code lens. That has the ability to edit, test, explain, and document, very similar to the agents you saw here in the dropdown. Now, the only difference is there's going to be a fix command that will pop up if there is an error in the code. So there isn't any here, so we're not going to see it. But when there is an error present, you'll see a fix pop up in the code lens. And then the last piece here that you'll be able to interact with Tabnine is through inline actions in our quick commands dropdown palette. Now you can use natural language here at the top to perform actions. You can access specific quick commands here through a backslash. You can determine your scope, right? So in this case, I'm just worrying about 91 through 112, but I can set that here, as well as determine which model I want to use. Going to stick with Claude for this demo. So let's go through the first or usual cycle for a software developer, going through each phase of the SDLC, and we're going to start with plan. Now, in this first stage, as a developer, it's incredibly important to gain an understanding of the project, what the project does, and what the key dependencies are, structures, so on and so forth. So what we're going to do here is let's open up our code explore agent. We're just going to hit enter. Now, it looks like it's perfect password generator project, and it's going to tell us the code explorer. Let me back up. Code explorer agent is a quick action that we've created that users can invoke when starting a conversation, right? AKA empty state, or by using /code explorer. And it will return a high-level summary of the project's key elements, runnable scripts, dependencies, and overall structure. And in addition to that, it's going to generate a handful of follow-up questions, allowing the developer to dive deeper into the relevant information for their current task. And using this, you can onboard so much faster, right? No more reading broken documentation or README files that just don't make sense. This is really, really cool. And to take it a step further, then you have explain. So, okay, I understand what the project does as a whole. I don't know what this does though, right? So we can say explain code, and we're gonna highlight this block. And explain code is just getting a little bit more granular, right? So now we can see, the specific uh, method being broken down and everything about it, right? Which is pretty cool and helpful for us to be able to onboard exponentially faster. So now we have an idea of what we're working with, and we got an understanding in less than a minute, right? We have a full understanding of what the project is and how it works, and maybe a specific area that we're working on. So let's go into create, right? We are going to now we know what's in each file and how it ties together. Let's move on to the next phase of the SDLC. So earlier this session, we talked about our Jira agents, right? And we can initialize that by clicking this Jira button here or by typing this command, and we're going to do a history tracking feature. Now, this dropdown only shows 8 issues. And if I go over to my board here, you can see, whoa, there's 58. And specific to me, there's 14 to do. But why are we only seeing 8? Well, I'll tell you why. Tabnine only shows, for one, the tickets that are specific to your user profile that you've integrated with. And 2, it's only going to show you the ones that have been active within the last 30 days. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick this history tracking feature, and we're just going to hit enter. Now what Tabnine's going to do is read our description, our acceptance criteria, and it's going to give us a method to store the passwords, modify the generate password method, and add a new option to look at the password history. And it's also something that, I want to call out here. Attribution. We talked about this earlier, right? But as Tabnine is generating this code, if there's anything that matches anything that's publicly available on GitHub, it's going to recognize that, tell me where it's coming from, and give me the license for it. And then I can make the choice right now as a developer if I want to include that or not. Right. So what we'll do here is let's first add this method, and we'll click apply. Now it's really important to know that Tabnine we weren't on generator.java, right? We were somewhere else. It doesn't matter where your what's it called? Your cursor is, Tabnine will automatically add the selected code where it should be based on the suggestion that it's provided, right? Okay, so we'll add this here. We'll do a new one here as well. And add this. This looks good. Well, that doesn't look necessarily great. Maybe this will remove that red. Just created a little bit more of it, but that's all right. What we can do then is go back and validate this. So I think we've added all the suggestions, but I'm curious. Validate this ticket. Now what Tabnine is going to do is it's going to go back and it's going to validate my implementation. It might be right, might be wrong, or might not be fully correct based on what I want to do on my acceptance criteria, right? So we've added this. It's correct. Perfect. It's displayed. The stored passwords ensure that password history. Awesome. Okay. Based on implementation, it appears all the acceptance criteria has been met. Perfect. But to fully validate it, right? It's telling me I need to test the functionality to make sure it works as expected. Very true. Verify that this is limited to 10 entries. Very true. And confirm that it's displayed correctly. All things that I have to do on my own. So it's really helpful and important to note that it's not just blindly being like, yeah, thumbs up, you're good to go. Saying, hey, before you move forward, a few more things that I think you should check, which is important. So let's move on then to documenting, right? So we've added some new code in here. Let's document it. So pick something that's a little bit easier. Yeah, we'll do this guy here. It's not right, but we're gonna document it because we're gonna ultimately go fix it. So there's one way, or there's multiple ways that you can generate documentation. Sorry, this doesn't look great right now. There's a lot of red here, but one is the code lens, right? I can accept that change, and boom, there's documentation here at the top of this block. Now we can also, let's go back. I can have my cursor in here. Let's say I've just finished writing this block. I can hit Command I, and I can populate this dropdown, and I can say, document code here. And it's going to populate or generate documentation. Now, the third way of being able to do it is you can actually use custom commands, right? So a custom command that I've created, I'll start a new conversation here, is one that generates docs from a template that I have standards and guidelines already outlined in, right? So I can select this code. And what it's going to do is it's first reading that sheet called Next Project Guidelines. And here is the updated documentation that follows more in line with how I want my team to be writing docs, right? And that's something that's really cool. We'll talk more about custom commands, but the ability to layer on different functionalities, right? So for this one, for example, reference the MD file for proper docs, and then create docs for the selected code based on the format in that file, which is what we just did. So let's move on then to testing, right? We've created new code. We've added docs to make sure it's right, or to let people know what we've created. Let's test it just to make sure it works. Probably should have documented after we've tested it, but that's okay. So we're going to move back here, and we're going to go to our test agent, right? So we're going to do our whole password.java. Let's do this, hit select. Now, two options here. You either have a test file or you don't have a test file. So we're going to start with number one. Let's say I don't have a test file. So we're going to create a new one. And you can browse specifically where you want that to be created, but we're just going to do a source test.java password.test. Okay. Yep. All right. Now what we're doing is the test agent is generating a comprehensive test plan with detailed test cases for functions, methods, and so on and so forth. And it's automatically going to generate test cases covering a wide variety of different testing scenarios, as we can see in the plain English descriptions here. Now we're going to select a handful to implement. We're going to do correct entropy here as the first one. So boom, we're going to click apply there. Return a score of 0 for an empty password. I like that one, but 0 maybe feels a little harsh. So we're just gonna say change 0 to 1 for strength score, because these are just starting points, right? We're just generating suggested taste or test cases. Uh, they can all be customized and modified. Now I like this one, so I'm going to insert that here or apply it into this file. And we're going to do one more here. We'll add this strength score. Perfect. Alrighty. These are all added in here now. Let's go to the other side of this. So let's say you have a test file created, right? Or we want to talk about getting full test coverage as a whole, which is really difficult to do. You can use Tabnine to do that, right? And how? Well, we're going to start with a new test plan. We're going to generate code. We're going to go generate test plan for code. We're going to select this code again. Now we already have a test file. So we just have to find the right one. Source, yes, this guy. Perfect. Okay. Now we're going to go back and we're going to generate another test plan. Now what you're going to see here is pretty darn cool. Tabnine is going to generate another comprehensive test plan, but it's going to recognize that you already have these existing tests, these 3. So it's going to generate another set of tests different from what you already have, helping you increase that coverage, which is awesome and really, really powerful. So last piece here is going to be maintaining. Let's say you didn't have a UX or a UI team telling you what to do, or a product manager not giving you the direction on what to build. Tabnine could be a great source of ideas for you on what to add into your application, right? So I'm going to ask chat to give me ideas to improve my code and make it more maintainable or more secure. Let's see here. Generate, whoops, do 5 ideas for how I can improve password strength calculation within this password generator application. We're just going to close this. Focus on, oh, I like that. Nah, we're just going to leave it open-ended. Now, what it's going to do is give me 5 ideas, areas to improve on, right? Give me the suggestion, the why, and the how. And then you can't feed all of this back into Jira, but you can do something pretty darn close and pretty darn cool, which is I can then ask Tabnine to generate Jira tickets with detailed descriptions and acceptance criteria for these suggestions above. And what Tabnine is going to do is it's going to spit out descriptions, titles, acceptance criteria for each of those suggestions, right? You feed that back in to your board, and boom, you're just repeating that flow again, right? Which is really awesome. And I think it's important because a lot of people don't write tickets well. And that's not because they can't, but it's because you don't necessarily have the time. And last thing you're worried about doing sometimes is making sure a ticket is properly documented and described and has the right acceptance criteria. So this is another way to just cut some really good corners. So we are going to move on to the code review agent because that's sort of the last leg here. So let me jump over here to our coaching rules. Let me answer any questions here. 3.7, not added yet, but we are working on it fast and furiously. Expect it to be here soon. Why don't I see the Jira integration scopes only file in workspace available? Also can't find the code review agent. These are enterprise features. So just want to, we can take this up offline if you are a customer and you're having issues. That's something we can reach out to your customer success manager or support, or I'd be, okay, Tabnine dev version. Okay, yeah, let me look into that. And we can talk about that. I can ping you on LinkedIn. Let me see here. A lot of attendees have used Tabnine. I have only installed it on Mac for my colleagues. Stephen, I highly encourage you to give it a try. I endorse it. It's not because, and also I do work here, but I think the tool is fascinating. Hard for me to not sound biased being in the position I am in, but I love it. I think it is a fascinating tool, and I highly encourage you to use it. I find so much value in it. Every day is have wow moments, which is cool. So let's keep on moving forward here. We're going to talk about the code review agent. So code review agent, we're going to start with this rules interface, right? And this is where you can see all the predefined rules by Tabnine, as well as a lot of the rules that align with, or all of the rules that will align with your unique standards. This is where they're going to be stored. And Tabnine Enterprise already comes standard with a set of rules that we've gathered, evaluated, and implemented based on software development best practices from leading voices in our space. But within the rules interface, you can visualize, fine-tune, you can see good and bad examples of each rule, determine what's public or on by default and enabled. Additionally, users can filter rules by severity, language, email, ID. Now, when it comes to adding in new rules, again, handful of ways to do it, but submitting rules in plain language to us, doing it via a JSON file. Tabnine will then ingest and create the rest. It'll enrich each rule, adding elaborate descriptions and good and bad examples, all of which can be configured, right? This isn't an end-all be-all. We know that this space, AI in general, is fast-moving. It's ever-changing. What was held as a requirement or a rule or a guideline might not be the same in 6 months, and we know that. So this is all able to be customized and changed. And you can also then here, just to hone in on this, you can filter by language as well as import and export these rules. So let's see what it looks like on the flip side. Also, just want to say, for folks who haven't been here in the beginning of this, you can also connect your repo, and Tabnine will evaluate and analyze and create a rule set based on your code base. Again, all of which can be configured post-generation. Now, when it comes to the developer flow, when a developer makes a PR, Tabnine reviews the code in the PR against your rules, flags deviations, and offers suggestions to fix that code. So let's look at that and see what that looks like. This is a sample PR here. And you can see for each issue, it's showing the file in question, the specific code in question, the rule that it's being violated, and then the suggested revision. And that'll go through every violation across that PR. And then it's also going to give you a summary report here at the bottom and tell you high-level information on critical issues, errors, warnings, and possible suggestions. Now, one thing to talk about. This is our old rules interface. Difference between linting and code review, right? Because sometimes there's confusion. A linting tool is fixed, right? It's checks against code and predefined. It checks code against predefined rules, primarily focusing on styles, syntax, and basic logic issues, right? So think of it as like a strict grammar checker that follows a really rigid rule book. And in contrast, Tabnine's code review agent is more like an experienced senior engineer who understands your team's specific context and preferences, right? And some key differences between the two. One is context-aware analysis, right? Code review agent understands your entire code base, understands your team's patterns, your organization's unique standards. It can identify if code doesn't align with how your team specifically writes software, even if that code's technically correct. Linting only checks against universal rules and patterns with no understanding of your team's specific approaches or preferences. The next piece is customization depth, right? A code review agent can be coached, right, through plain language instructions about your team's preferences and standards. And you can explain complex architectural principles or business logic rules that you want it to enforce. And linting is primarily offers configuration through technical rules, regex patterns with limited ability to understand higher level concepts. And then we think about learning and adaptation, right? Code review agents going to, get smarter over time about your code base through its connection to your repositories and documentation, right? It's got to be able to understand your patterns specific to your projects. And linting rules are just, it's very, very static and rigid, right? And then we talk about feedback quality, right? The code review is much more detailed in the explanations of issues, suggested improvements, and even generate code fixes while maintaining consistency with your existing patterns. While linter is usually brief and predefined error message with a basic fix configuration or suggestion. So think of it this way. Linting tool is like a spell check, while Tabnine's code review agent is more like having a senior dev who knows your code base inside and out, reviewing your code. So just want to pop back over here because there's some other stuff I would like for us to chat about here. And I'll take a quick pause here. Like to talk to someone about the pro version, not enterprise. Like the product a lot, but it is very limited compared to enterprise from what I'm seeing. You do get exponentially more features for in the enterprise enterprise flavor, but that's because it's Tabnine Enterprise is truly geared towards the enterprise organization. There's a lot of stuff we find only necessary with those larger orgs. And then let's see, what is this? How about, wow, let me see here. My previous job, I used it for developing. Sure. I am not super familiar with Loudjet. I am not exactly sure how that would work with us, but I can find out with you and get back to you, Stephen. Okay, so last bit we're going to talk about here today is going to be the settings section. There's a lot of really, really cool things that we can do here that are pretty recent to Tabnine. First is response length, right? We understand that different scenarios call for different levels of detail, right? And our new response lengths customization feature lets users fine-tune how Tabnine communicates based on their specific needs and preferences, right? Comprehensive mode, great for in-depth explanations, alternative approaches, gives better examples. It's really good for developers who are new to a team or project and they need more assistance. Concise, great for devs who just want quick to the point answers. They're going to receive focused responses that cut straight to the solution. Next bit here is custom behaviors. Personal favorite of mine, of new features we've released recently, and I'll tell you why. It's, in my opinion, fundamentally changing how developers are going to interact with Tabnine AI Chat. So think of it as having a configurable AI partner that will adjust its expertise and communication styles based on your specific needs. So a couple use cases we've seen so far. Um, excuse me. One is localization, right? Being able to say in Hindi, set, and then let's go back over here and we'll say, explain everything. Just explain this project to me. And what it's going to do, I mean, I can't necessarily read it, unfortunately, but it's giving you a response back in Hindi. Same goes for German, Chinese, any language. So you have teams that not, you know, rare to find global teams in today's world. This breaks down that barrier that folks often struggled with, right? If English isn't your first language or second language, you can use Tab9 now to have it communicate with you back in the language of your choice. The next piece here is that you can also say, you can have Tab9 focus on security patterns, architectural trade-offs, API design, scalability. You can have Tab9 to operate as a mentor who's giving you, paragraph responses and with examples and the whys and the hows of the suggestions, right? You can really tailor fit it to your individual preference, which is huge. There's a lot of really cool things. I mean, it's really the sky's the limit. Your imagination is the limit with how custom chat behaviors work. Same goes really for custom commands. You can do things as simple as, summarize this project and suggest the copy for a README file. You can do things like, let's see here, Vol Smasher. Analyze the suggested code for possible vulnerabilities. And if there are any, say what they are, where they are, and provide documentation around that. And if there aren't, tell me so. Then you can take them a step further, right? And we can make them sequenced. So things like we showed earlier in this demo, you can use at mentions. So I want to reference specific documentation guidelines or standards, or I have a bunch of tests that I have to run each new component. I'm producing hardware. I'm a hardware producer, right? I have 1,000 tests that I have to stick each new piece of hardware I create through to make sure it runs properly. I can set Tab9 to reference that set of tests, create a new test file for this specific piece of hardware based on this whole test plan that we already have implemented that we're already using. And then like that, it's going to generate a new test plan for me. Incredibly, incredibly powerful. Again, another area where the limit's your imagination, which I think is powerful and rare in our space today. So let me see here. If there's anything that you guys want to see me build a custom command of, or see me test out any functionality, happy to do that. But I think this is where we've hit the end of the demo. A little bit shorter today. We have not touched 2 hours, which we sometimes do. But yeah, let me know if there's any questions here. I'll stay on for a few minutes and answer them as they come in. But again, appreciate everyone's time, and thanks for joining another session of Tabnine Office Hours. And don't worry if we are, if you have questions that you do not think of right now, feel free to find myself or Amaya on LinkedIn. Happy to answer any questions there. Um, as well as if you are current customers, please reach out to your customer success manager. Um, Let me see here. I see another question. Yeah, Trifon, I will figure out the model context protocol support. Um, that is something I'm not super aware of right now, but I do know the right people to ask. So I will get back to you on that one. Can we talk about hardware requirements? Yes, we can. Give me 1 second here, and I can find that out for you. Okay, so it does vary. Let me give me one quick session here while I pull up this information. Yeah, so let me see. A bare bones installation of Tab9. Now we're talking Tab9 protected chat, Tab9 protected completions. No features like global RAG, attribution provenance, coaching, re-ranker. It's straightly straightforward. It's a 24 CPU, 72 gigabytes RAM, around 300 gigabytes of SSD, and around two L40S or L40 GPUs. Um, when we talk about adding in more functionality, right, more features, um, Global RAG, for example, doesn't require another GPU. It requires just 8 gigabytes of storage. Um, L40S or L40s aren't necessarily the strongest GPUs, so maybe like a stronger model like Llama or Quen would want to run on a bigger GPU, right? You'd probably need maybe 4 L40s to run a Llama 3.3. But that's just an estimate. That's something we'd have to work with our field engineering team. I can tell you that provenance and attribution requires at least 2 terabytes of disk space, split into different types of storage, right? So like a persistent volume storage and a host storage. But yeah, even like Quen can't currently be run on an L40 or an L40. Um, so so yeah, I hope that maybe helps a little bit. It's hardware is a confusing topic, I know. And sometimes is on a case by case basis, but happy to work with you, Matt, to figure out what you're trying to tackle here. I will have to let you know here if it is in the works, but we can get back to you and let you know here, Daniel. I can confirm though that Claude 3.7 is in the works. And statistically, what we've been seeing is that it's performing super, super well. So uh, just a matter of time. But we are, just want to make sure everyone is aware, we are always actively looking, researching, and evaluating up and coming LLMs. That's something that we stay on top of. So do not worry there. Now, that's a good question, Matt. I can tell you some specifics on Llama and Quen. Exactly how it's going to compare to Claude is a little it's a little more tough on like a side by side comparison. Tell you that Llama delivers really exceptional performance on complex enterprise programming tasks. Um, at the core of this, it's a more effective token prediction through advanced attention mechanisms. So Llama 3.3 is able to maintain coherence across the long sequences of code found in enterprise applications. Llama 3.3 is able to make better use of Tabnine's context engine, and so increasing the quality of AI recommendations with a more accurate understanding of complex multi-file code bases with intricate dependencies and architectural patterns. So like practical terms, Llama 3.3's context capabilities resulted in like a 42.5% or 6% success rate on challenging programming problems. It's also significantly more efficient with a 40% lower memory footprint compared to similarly sized alternatives. That said, Quen 2.5 offers, a really good a 94% success rate in adhering to established patterns and strongly performs in generating idiomatic code across multiple programming languages. And that's really important as enterprise development teams work with heterogeneous technology stacks that span various languages, frameworks, and architectural patterns. So again, it's really specific to what your organization wants and what your organization's unique needs are, and determine your model choice and what you would want to use. But again, not to beat a dead horse, you don't get that with other competitors, right? You don't have the ability to have that freedom and flexibility that you do here, which ultimately gives you control over your architecture. And that's what we all want, right? We don't want it to be left into someone else's hands. We would ultimately, I think everyone deserves to have control over something like this. But great question. And if we don't have any more here, I think that we will probably wrap things up here. I'll put my face nice and big here for everyone to see. Thank you again for joining this session of Tabnine Office Hours. It is always a pleasure to be able to jump on and chat with you folks. If there are any more questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Find me on LinkedIn or find my colleague Amaya, who is usually here and will be here next week, as well as myself. Again, we do this every week. So next week will be at 7 a.m. Week after will be again at 10:30, and we just alternate times between the 2 weeks. So yeah, thanks for joining. Hope you guys have a good day, good evening. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Cheers.